Any men that are watching out there, giving a woman a bowl of hummus that about 600 other fingers have been preparing, and sticking carrots that haven't even had the tops cut off them, that doesn't win anybody over in the real world.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Love or Lie Island. This week, a lot of stuff has happened over the course of the last 7 days. I'm joined once again with the lovely Judi to discuss all the body language on the show and whether or not the Islanders are really behaving on saying things like they mean to. First up, I've got a clip of Faye and her apology to Teddy. Obviously, the last couple of episodes, she's had a massive fallout with Teddy. This apology did seem a little forced. I don't know whether you felt the same way, Judi, but let's have a look.
No beating around the bush. I am really sorry for the way I spoke to you. Like, really sorry. There's no excuse for the way I spoke to you or how I raised my voice, and no one should have someone speak to them like that.
That was what I would call a non-apology. The words that were coming out of Faye's mouth were, I suppose, reasonably apologetic, but it reminded me, when like two kids have been fighting at school and the teacher says you've got to go and say sorry and you really don't mean it. Her body language was hugely incongruent with any apology. She was actually quite arrogant with her. It was almost as though if you were just watching them and not hearing what was being said or knew what needed to be said, it was a bit like she was still telling Teddy off to a certain extent. She sat straight onto him. She used a minimum of eye contact. Now, when you really care about somebody and you've got yourself in that kind of a pickle where you've said the wrong thing, done the wrong thing, normally with an apology, you'll be watching them, particularly if you're supposed to love them. Inverted commas, but you'd want to see how your words were affecting them, whether they were seeing how sorry you genuinely were, whether they were getting angry or whatever. So you'd almost be reading their mind. But she was using what are called distraction rituals. I don't know if you noticed, she was pulling at her dress, she was preening her hair. It was though, she was in the middle of doing the housework and just saying something. So those distraction rituals almost implied that he wasn't that important to her. She also did a very telling signal, which is called pit bearing. So at least twice she raised her arm and bared her armpit. That's not a submissive gesture. Submission is all about, lowering yourself slightly, looking at the other. That again was very much a power signal. It's as though the residue of how she was the other night was still hanging around. Her chin was very raised, and then verbally she got to this bit where, I wouldn't normally say, it's like, it was almost like, you're really lucky that I've actually managed to regurgitate the word sorry, because I wouldn't normally speak to it. That's rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I'm sure Faye's got a history of behaving like, she let us know, didn't she? He won't get on with my family because presumably they love the big rows and he's very chilled. So
Yeah.
I'm sure she didn't look particularly like a stranger to that kind of behaviour. And to sort of sit there and say, well, you should really be lucky. It's like, you've got a badge from me because you're the first person. And that he should be grateful that she bothered to let the word sorry slip out of her mouth. And then we got the kiss, eyes open. Sorry, Faye, it's not working for me.
What about?
I know.
It just seems that
It's
she didn't really want to be there.
tender. Yeah, it wasn't caring. It wasn't, for me, not a genuine. And then the way the others all started throwing themselves in the pool and leaping around as though this was the best love story. Two star-crossed lovers had finally got it together. I'm not seeing it like that, I'm afraid, at all. But there you go. Cynical and sour.
Do you think that they will ever be able to repair their relationship following those scenes? Obviously they've had that moment just there, but is it actually genuine?
I'm afraid for me, and we discussed this last week. I'm not getting those two anyway. Really,
Yeah.
I said last week, could you imagine that working on the outside? Because she will be able to behave exactly as she wants to. I just feel, and
Mm.
I've said really good things about Faye because I think she was up until the big explosion a really good reality contestant. I like hearing from her. I thought she was funny. I have a very strong feeling that she's maybe either in the wrong show. I mean, they would have probably
Mm.
loved her on Big Brother. There's a load of more American-based reality shows, but they do nothing but argue. And I think she'd be very
Yeah.
suited to those. And I think, in a way, I see her more as being on one big casting for shows like that. They're all, a lot of them are doing that at the moment. I think they think if I'm not going to win this show, which is not the main prize in terms of career,
Mm.
they're probably. I mean, Toby's definitely got his name down for X on the Beach, hasn't he? I mean, he's going to be the naughty boy that kind of, all of the
Yeah.
shows that love the naughty boy, they'll love him. So I just feel that with
Mm.
her, I don't know, it might even be the only way is Essex, I don't know, but there seems to be something else that would suit her
Mhm.
better. And I don't think that Teddy is
Totally
particularly part of that scene. He's too chilled. He's lovely. I mean, I don't know. What's he really like?
agree.
But they're badly suited, I think. So I think they'll stick together until
Mm.
the finale, but not much longer.
If they make it that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what do
And
you know? I
another,
don't.
well, another major kind of moment from the past couple of days was Jake's non-apology to Liberty. He seemed very defensive when being called out for his actions. Should we take a look?
I'm not going to stay with someone I don't find attractive, would I? This journey together is we've gone from there to there. We're growing, growing, growing,
So
growing,
did that
growing.
grow?
What? Oh, babe, obviously you're my girlfriend. Of course it's grown, you idiot.
I mean, if I
Just seemed
could
very
growl, I would do because I was literally, GRRR is in my mind at the moment because everybody possibly apart from her could see and hear what's going on there. Before he even went and sat with her there, you could see him sitting there, and he was still, when he was by himself, he was kind of revving with anger. He'd still got that anger left from what had happened, and you could see it's like a car revving up. And then he took that over to speak to her there, and he very much played with her mind, I think, to a certain extent, that all she wanted to hear, quite simple, Jake, it wouldn't have killed him, is just, no, you're very beautiful, and I absolutely didn't mean that. Not once did he tell her that she looked
yeah,
good. It was just all this, like you see people when they say, do you love me? Well, I'm here, aren't I? It's all of those silly answers.
yeah,
It's as though he wanted to say anything but, I find you beautiful. It's
mm,
like, oh, well, you're my girlfriend, and when he said, I'm not going to sleep with someone I don't find attractive, am I? I'm very tempted to yell out, by the sounds of that, yes, you probably are, Jake, and in the past, maybe you have.
yeah,
It was one of those ridiculous questions that you just don't say. You just say to somebody, no, I love you, and you're absolutely gorgeous, and that's all he had to say. He was swerving all over the place, anything but say those words. And his body language did get quite angry as well. He started off by shrugging like it's no big deal, and it clearly was to her. It wasn't. It wasn't how he was feeling at
yeah,
that point. It should have been her. Um, and then he started sort of banging his hand down. Quite angry rituals going on.
mm,
I don't think he liked his quite compliant girlfriend suddenly holding anything over him. I think he felt a little bit squashed by it. I mean, the others will happily do the doghouse. I don't think he will. And boy, does he need to. And,
yeah,
at the end, he got also that slightly sorry, and then we'll move on from it. We'll move on from it. I reckon he heard Wayne Rooney during the
mm,
week because he said almost the same thing in his sort of not an apology about what had happened. And he said, I just want to move on
yeah,
from it now. It's not up to him. It's up to her. Can we
yeah,
move on from it? Not I'm going to move on from it. He left her no option, actually. The way he behaved, her only choice was to dump him, and or forgive him, which, either way she was left looking
Yeah.
very weak, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, with his body language seeming particularly cold, and also they were sat at a distance between them as well. I mean, if he did genuinely feel some kind of way about her, surely he wouldn't have been so cold. So
No,
is his feeling towards her actually genuine?
well, that's the point. I mean, the way that they're presenting their feelings for one another on that show, which is this kind of loving couple, that are so similar and have been loved up since almost they first saw one another, and
Yeah.
they're the ones that, he wasn't even, mind you, nobody's really fancied Jake, to be honest, so it's not like he's been tested. Um, but the way they present themselves, he would have understood her a lot better. He would have, absolutely, you're right, been sitting next to her, not sort of sitting in a confrontational position. And the way that he kissed her at the end, he just about took his bum off the seat and leant in for it. Wasn't affectionate, it wasn't caring. He didn't want to find out any more about how she was feeling. He didn't want to know. He just wanted to get it finished. The scene clearly didn't suit him at all. He was angry. Um, and just, he wants to be the nice guy, and he also wants to be the alpha leader in there, and alpha leaders shouldn't be having problems from their women. They should be adored, and that didn't really suit him very well. I'm sure inside Jake there's a
Yeah.
really, really nice guy, but it's just not coming over very well in the way that he does his relationships. And we had that teaser,
It
didn't
is.
we, that she's going, oh, if he's taking me for granted. I've got a feeling that's probably not quite what we think it's going to be. I think that might just be something that isn't
Yeah.
too big a rift. I do think
I
that the
was thinking the
show
same thing
the
too.
show's got a bit of crossroads at the moment, and I think the producers have a problem, because I think the fans are literally sitting there either waiting to throw something at the set and not watch it again if all the relationships mend, or sitting there
Yeah.
cheering if some of them actually do get resolved in the way that they want them to be seen to be resolved, which is really some of those women fighting back a bit.
Totally. Well, that actually leads quite well onto the next clip, because Millie and Liam have made up, which is very, very frustrating to watch as a viewer. Should we take a look at the next clip?
Yeah, I'm just happy that we're able to get back on track again. Aren't you?
So happy.
And obviously, we had a little kiss last night.
So Millie is saying that she's happy to be back with him in this clip, but she doesn't actually look too happy to be there. What do you make of this?
I think she's still trying to play it a little bit in her favour, which was that there was a stage where she held. Well, you don't hold all the cards if your partner's done something that you don't like. It gives you a
Yeah.
degree of power for certain, but your power's already gone because they've done whatever it was that they did. So it's kind of fake power. I think she played it quite a bit. I don't think, in terms of grafting, did we see anything particularly? It's the usual thing. They make a little bit of melon or something for them, and that's seen as grafting. But I think
Yeah.
now she's probably realising that it's quite a low bar in there in terms of male good behaviour, and she's probably got one of the better ones. And I think she does have genuine feelings for him, and I think the big problem that any woman would have in that scenario is that the feelings that she did have for him, because he was almost the perfect male, have been compromised, and she's now got to try and patch it up and hope that she still feels the same. She won't. She won't, because she's seen that there is sort of behaviour that she doesn't like. She knows that there's a bit of trust has gone, so it will never be the same. And I think that's probably why she's not looking deliriously happy, because that idyllic double act has gone. He does look. I mean, Jake maybe could watch his body language, because he does look reasonably convincing when she's talking to him. I mean, he literally is taking in everything with his eye contact. You can see his eyes darting around her face. He's trying to read everything that's in her mind, and he has this smile. The look of love is there. The very face softened look of love. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that he's acting, all right, no, not acting, but he's been pushed into a role as though he actually is 32 years old and they've been married for quite a few years with a couple of kids. He's having to play this very adult, oh, I'm so pleased that you're even smiling at me, and I'm so pleased. He's 21, and just because he looks older,
Yeah.
I do feel a little bit sorry for him. He's with one of the more grown up women in there. He's in what is being sold as a serious relationship that will, last forever. And I feel a bit sorry for him because he is only 21, and Toby's allowed to behave however, Toby can release the inner child anytime he
Yeah.
wants. But with Liam, he's got to be this grown up, almost pipe smoking father of a family or something. And that's what I think may cause a few problems. To keep with Millie, I think he's going to have to sell out his youth, which sounds mean, but I feel sorry for him about that, actually.
And surely that's not a good basis for a relationship if you're having to, kind of stop or kind of compress a part of yourself to impress someone else. Surely that's
Yeah,
gonna
I mean, we all do
somehow
it,
end
but it usually involves pretending that you haven't got 3 cats, or sort of not letting them see the fact that you've got a lousy taste in rom-coms or something. Pretending to like things that creates a more suitable fit. But when you're having to role play this completely besotted, grown-up adult man role. The problem is that there is a kind of psychological thing that they say that rebellion will always come out at some stage or another. And it might be something that if he's not been allowed to be more playful and fun. I mean, he didn't actually cheat on her, really, and it's part of what Love Island's all about. It wasn't good, but to shoehorn himself back into that relationship by behaving like a much more mature man, no, I think, how's he going to get
Yeah.
out of that one? That's going to be quite interesting. But I think he clearly does have a lot of feelings for her.
Totally. And our last clip is Aaron and Mary. So they've started getting to know each other and appear quite cozy in recent scenes. But is their connection all that genuine? Should we take a look at the next clip?
Yeah.
Definitely the funniest couple in here now.
Yeah, 100%.
We definitely
You just
are.
called us a couple. You need to slow down.
This was a big brownie point.
Big brownie points.
100%.
What do we make of these two?
I watched the whole of that scene. I mean, it started off with that awful preparation of food. This ritual that the guys, any men that are watching out there, giving a woman a bowl of hummus that about 600 other fingers have been preparing, and sticking carrots that haven't even had the tops cut off them. That doesn't win anybody over in the real world. It's not even cute, I don't think. But I noticed that when he came over to speak to her, she was chatting away anyway, but then she looked, and the look on her face as he walked up, it literally dropped. It went quite cold. Now, when we see somebody that we have fond feelings for, or even beginning to love, the facial expression, whenever you look at them, changes into a much softer, as I say, it's literally called the look of love. Hers was almost the opposite. It wasn't, oh, well, I'm so glad you're here. It was almost as though she didn't like having the conversation interrupted. And I thought, for me, that was quite a big giveaway that she hasn't got any at the moment particularly warm feelings for him. She did then start to get into conversation, but I don't know if you noticed, I felt that a lot of it was based on, oh, we make a really good couple in here. It was almost as though she was aware of how they were going to look.
Yeah.
And it was quite competitive, and
Yeah.
full marks to her. She's on a competition. But you maybe don't say it out loud, and the more that she warmed to that
Yeah.
theme, then her legs laid over him. Oh, you know, we look really good together. So I don't blame her. She's probably, I mean, she's quite young. She's stunning. I don't feel he's the man for her, quite honestly. But I think that she probably could be seeing them again as a couple that could get right through to the end. I mean, she has had a struggle, really, hasn't
Yes.
she? You know, with sort of revolving door of her men.
Yeah.
But yeah, she suddenly zones in on me and starts paying me my attention. But I didn't see it there initially, and for me, that was the big tell.
Interesting. Well, maybe, yeah, they are just, well, she is playing a game just to kind of get towards the final, as close as she can to the final. But it'll be interesting to see whether they actually decide to stay together.
Yeah, I don't want to make her sound too calculating, because I think she probably does like him. I mean, you know, he's quite a nice guy, good looking. But I think she may have been just making herself look more besotted. I mean, honestly, in the real world, a guy coming over with an old carrot is not going to get her attention. But, you know, in
It's
there,
for no.
obviously, she had to show. And she obviously realised that everybody else had joined in, etc. They're doing a lot
Yeah.
of what, there's a kind of pack pressure in there at the moment. It's as though with a lot of the relationships, the rest of the pack are listening, and waiting to cheer, and if they take them back, and that's a shame, because I think some people are doing like recoupling with people more to make themselves popular with the group rather than anything else. But yeah, there's some unhappy relationships in there at the moment. They're not, none of them are particularly satisfactory or rewarding, I don't think.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it all seemed a little bit forced, and I don't know whether that's because the final is looming and they're in it to, you know, to win. But yeah, like you said, they do seem a bit unhappy.
Yeah, just
But
not. I'm not watching any and thinking yay at the moment. You know, it's
yeah,
in
I'm
fact,
not rooting for
no,
any
I'm one
particular
of the
couple at
ones
the
that's
moment.
sitting there with a load of old rotten tomatoes waiting to throw them at the screen if we have to sort of pretend that we're idyllically happy that, you know, they've made up their rows and things like that. So, and I don't know, the producers can send in as many new people as they want now. I don't think there's any huge cure for that, especially as we got last night. If the new people that they're sending in are pairing off with one another, no, you're not supposed
Yeah,
to do that. I mean, clearly it was a great pairing, and yeah, I think Priya's fantastic. I mean, I just like watching her and listening to her. But no, you're supposed to go in there and split some of the, you know, and maybe sort some of them out, or
yeah,
yeah. But anyway, I'm sure the producers
it
have got it
hasn't really
all in
gone down
hand.
that way.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
they've got
Oh,
a lot.
Judi,
Sorry, I'm talking over you.
I was gonna say, no, it's so nice. No, it's so nice being able to actually see you and talk to you about all things body language. What are you kind of, just more generally now then, what are you kind of expecting for the final? Obviously, we've still got like 2 weeks to go, but
There is actually still quite a long way to go. I think some of those couples are going to resolutely stay glued together, and if they do, we're going to get the suspects lining up that we know. I mean, it's going to be, you know, Jake and Liberty. It's going to be Teddy, and I don't know. That's what people want, really. But if they, I'm just hoping that somebody somewhere, like a producer or whoever, manages to get a little bit of friction going in there, so that if they are there, you know, if we are seeing Jake and
yeah,
Liberty, and if we see them, we know they've been through something else before they've got there. And you know, I don't think we want to see those guys standing there smiling smugly at the camera, like, I've managed to convince you all that I've completely loved up, when we know, you know, it almost makes us feel that they think we're stupid. So yeah, I'm hoping, maybe if it were me and I was producing, and I'm not, I would be going in with those, you know, when they used to tell them the Twitter comments and things like that from the public.
yes, the headlines,
Yeah,
yes.
just to shake it up a bit. I don't want people getting deeply upset in there but just to take some of those smug smiles off those faces, and if they are then going to end up in the final, they've sorted a lot of stuff that we know needs sorting out before they've got there, and I think that could be a lot more heartwarming for us.
Totally. Thank you so much, Judi.
Pleasure.